Hello, friends, strangers, and listeners. I am one of your hosts, Has Katie.
And I'm your other host, Laura Barnes, on the Public Domain Plays podcast.
Good call. Naming the podcast is a good idea. Everybody else, shout out your name again and pronouns. My pronouns again are he, him, and she, her.
And mine are she, her.
Hi, I'm Alex. My pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Blake. Pronouns she, her.
Hi, I'm Dom. Pronouns he, him.
I'm Drew, and my pronouns are he, him.
Hello, I'm Shakira. My pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm James. My pronouns are he and they.
And this is our talk episode about the episode we just recorded, R.U.R, Rossum's Universal Robots. And we just want to get into some, stuff and just talk about what we think about the play and all kinds of stuff like that. Up first,
we have a dramaturg.
We
have
a
dramaturg. Now, I can say it. I said it wrong on our last talk episode, apparently. Alex is coming on board as our dramaturg for the podcast officially, and resident actor. We are so excited to have them on board. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about the historical context of this play and any other fun stuff you think we should know?
Yeah, absolutely. I just love researching plays and talking about plays, so I'm very excited to officially be the dramaturg. First off, I just want to talk for a second about the history of the robot story, because I know when we first started recording this, someone, I don't remember who, was like, oh, I'm surprised that they were talking about robots in the 1920s. And I think a lot of people associate the idea of a robot with 1950s and beyond. We think of 1950s retrofuturism and, to the present. But the actual first artificial intelligence story, or at least what we consider to be the first artificial intelligence story, is actually the ancient Jewish legend of the golem, which were clay creatures that were intended for labor. I first read about golems in Terry Pratchett's work, so if you're familiar with Discworld, you're probably familiar with these creatures. And they have a plot line, very similar to a lot of AI plot lines. The first example in modern literature that people usually point to is Frankenstein. Frankenstein, relatively modern, which is also said to be the first piece of science fiction literature. The definition that I always like to refer to of science fiction is the definition given by sci-fi writer and game designer Bruce Glasgow. He always refers to sci-fi as stories that explore times when our abilities evolve faster than our compassion. And you can apply that to pretty much every robot story and almost every science fiction story, definitely to this play. Now a little bit of background on the play itself. So, written during a bit of a wacky time, especially in the world, but especially in Czechoslovakia. So post-World War I. World War I, as we know, saw this huge boom of war technology. And, gases, machine guns, trenches, all of these new inventive ways to kill people. And that really shocked the world, not just in the extreme amount of death, but also in humanity's ability to create technology that would kill. Also, World War II was kind of ramping up at this point. We were getting to World War II and the atomic age. So a lot of anxiety, but specifically around industrialization and war. Capek is said to have lost the will to live shortly before the Nazis invaded his country because he seemed to see where the country was going. And in fact, his brother died in a concentration camp, which is likely what would have happened to him had he lived. All this to say, he lived in a time of great anxieties about the role of labor and war in our society, as well as a time when human beings were committing atrocities previously not thought possible. The reason that this play is famous, and it's really not famous, this play is rarely produced, but the reason that people know it at all is because it is the first usage of the word robot, which was actually originally proposed by Capek's brother Joseph. It literally means slave, and it replaced the previous term automaton. Because this was not the first story to use what we consider to be robots, yeah?
So robot is a Czech word, right? And then this is how it came into the zeitgeist of the world.
Yeah, exactly. How it got incorporated into our lexicon. And Rossum means reason. So the title is literally Reason's Slaves. Interesting.
Ooh.
This echoes the idea, putting compassion, putting progress, putting abilities before compassion. This echoes the idea that the real villain here is Damin's insistence on putting science and progress over compassion, putting reason over compassion. It's also really reminiscent of a lot of the romantic ideals of the 20th century, including a lot of the ideas that Frankenstein was based on. One thing that I find interesting is, one of its main lasting effects is the usage of the word robot and a lot of robot media that was produced after it. But one of the most iconic robot writers, Asimov, does not like this play. Did not like. He's not alive. Did not like this play. Asimov did not like this play, and I could not find an explanation of why. I found a quote where he said, the only thing that this contributed was the word robot, and it sucks. That's not exactly what he said. He did not say it sucks, but that was more or less the gist. And I would love to discuss why the Robot King himself might have not liked this, and then the kind of little topics I have of these are some fun things that we could go into if we so choose, is a whole lot of capitalism discussion here, a whole lot of political, but some echoes of Marxism, some echoes of fascism, a whole lot of socioeconomic fun stuff happening here. But also less clear but still present are the role of gender and also the philosophical concept of the soul. So those are my three, those are the big boys in this play for me.
Yeah, those are some definite themes. And we might get into those, we're going to have a best and worst quotes section later. I think some of, my favorite quotes definitely get into the capitalism theme. Thank you for your segment of dramaturgy, Alex. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to say about, the historical, socio-political context of this play?
You said Chapek would have probably ended up in a concentration camp had he lived. What I haven't looked it up. What happened to him? Did he lost the will to live? Suggests one avenue.
There was also tuberculosis involved.
Ah,
I was going to say, I believe he died.
So
of it.
that's the
That'll
more
do it.
dramatic way to say it. But it was also tuberculosis.
Mhm.
fair enough.
That said, the Nazis actually did come for him. The news of his death didn't actually spread, so they showed up a year or two later. I believe they arrested his widow because they were looking for him.
Oof.
Did they really? I did not know that.
Pretty sure.
That's a pretty bad deal.
That's rough.
Sorry to Chopek's widow.
That's rough, buddy.
So something that I want to talk about for all of our plays is we actually, in our last play, Important to Be in Earnest, we didn't cut anything at all. We're just trying to keep things under 2 hours.
Earnest uncut.
Earnest uncut. In this play, we did cut some stuff because we didn't want to do it. There was some casual racist stuff, some not nice words for Black people and Indigenous folks. So that was really easy to just not do. And if you do this play, please cut like we did. Please don't have people say those words. We also cut. There's when Nana is reading from the newspaper, in that scene where they're reading from the newspapers. We cut Nana sort of sounding out the words, and it just we felt like it didn't translate very well, so we just had her read it. So that maybe is more of a stylistic choice, but it just didn't make a ton of sense to us.
Yeah, it was very strange, and it felt like doing it would have verged on mocking people with a stammer, and that is not something we want to do at our podcast. It was strange. So yeah, we had a couple of minor cuts in this one. Nothing major. But yeah, we did do a couple things. Does anyone have a favorite quote or a least favorite quote? I did have one that I wrote down as we were going through it, and I don't even know that it's necessarily my favorite quote. It's just, well, I'll get to it once I say it. A man has to be a bit mad, Helena. That's the best thing about him. Which reminded me so much of the Importance of Being Earnest line from last month. Every woman turns into her mother. That's her tragedy. No man does, and that's his. it felt like a very Algernon Moncrief kind of line. So I just
Yeah,
had to.
that's
true.
I also really like the line about like because sex means nothing to them, and it was like, that's relatable.
All robots ace kings.
Yeah. And whether it means sex as gender or sex as sex, it doesn't matter.
I love Damien going, what? Oh, we thought Marius and Scylla were lovers.
I really
That
like
is
Alex's
my
delivery of
Favorite.
that
I
one as
love that
well.
one. Yeah, and Alex delivers it so well, and yeah, it makes me
Because
laugh
I
every
really
time.
wanted it to be gay.
It's
Yeah.
gay. It's so gay, and I love it.
Yeah.
And it also, okay, I will say the deeper reason that I like it is because history is perceived ultimately by people, and we can never really know what truly happened. And so, from different perspectives, like so many different things happened in history, and they could have been lovers. Like,
Well, we're seeing
who
more and more
knows?
now that history was straightwashed, history was whitewashed. You know,
absolutely.
history was redefined according to normative values, and as time goes on and we uncover more details, we go, oh,
Wait a second.
Hey. we are
This
here,
might make
we have
more
always
sense,
been
though.
here. You know.
It's also interesting how that relates to the play, because in the play they're creating a new species and kind of applying human ideas
Yes.
that are very contemporary to the time that the play was written, and the robots don't conform to those ideas, whether or not that's gender or sexuality.
They wanted to eventually just make the robots, like, nationalists. Like, they wanted to make the robots separate each other.
What I found so cool about that is that there's been so much discussion about God and not doing God's work and all of that, and they wanted to Tower of Babel the robots.
Yes! Yes! They did!
They literally wanted to do an act of God all
It's so
over again.
ironic. It's so ironic because they're like, we want to do something different than God, but we also want to be God. And then, like, they even end the play with the two robots that start the new generation of robots as Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
And that's it's one big cycle, and it's still humanity, and the robots are going to become the new version of humanity, but they're still going to be humanity. They're still gonna have similar flaws that humanity did because they built the robots in humanity's image.
I always find it fascinating when, sci-fi authors can conceptualize, incredible developments in new technology, alien societies, this, but gender essentialism, I mean, there's no other way but
Right.
Yeah, that
strictly
drives
binary
me
norms.
nuts.
It's
is when it's like, oh, this is
insane.
1,000 years in the future, but everyone is cis and gender roles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you on?
This medieval
about?
fantasy
Like,
world
what are you
has
talking
dragons and elves, but we can't conceive of
Right.
the idea of people of color in a medieval Europe-esque society.
Well,
Right,
I know this
exactly.
was not on the recording, but before we were recording, we were mentioning Becky Chambers, and that's one reason that I love her so much, is she's like, no, these are aliens. Of course they have different concepts of gender and sex and, like, race, and, like, this is another planet.
One of my favorite quotes from this play, or one of the best ones my silly one is, oh, Busman knows all about omelets. Love that.
know about omelets?
Oh, apparently
Busman
a
knows
lot.
all about omelets.
Ask Busman.
There's an art to a good omelet.
But the one
Alec sets the table.
Yeah, I love that part.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know how to do anything, but he sets a nice table.
I'm sure we'll come back to this, but the idea of this, post-labor society, man will just be able to better himself. The constant degradation and dismissal of Alquist as the manual laborer in the group.
Yeah.
He just sets the table.
right, well, it's
Basically,
interesting.
hush, hush, man, the gentlemen are talking.
There's also something to be said about, like, oh, like, they still have to do the women's work because they haven't valued it enough to make the robots do, like, the women's work well.
Right.
Which is interesting.
I also
But-
think
It
there's
comes up
something.
multiple times.
Sorry.
In our perfect society, Alquist will build us a house, and we'll just sit there and enjoy.
Yeah.
Our
Oh, he'll
luxury
do it.
and,
My other favorite little exchange in this play is when Domian says, which worker do you think is best from a practical point of view? And
Mm-hmm.
Helena goes, oh, perhaps the one who's most honest and hardworking. And he's like, nope, the one that is cheapest.
Yeah.
That line just feels so relevant to where we are
Yeah,
today.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That line has
Jeff
always been
Bezos?
relevant.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Since capitalism has existed.
I
Yeah,
have a
like,
habit of snarking
with,
in the
you
chats
know, I'm just
while I
like thinking
do
of
Zoom readings and recordings and things. And one of the things I said in there is that it's interesting to me that the word robot came from this idea of effectively, you know, this unpaid drudge stuck in serfdom,
Yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
stuck in this unceasing, uncompensated labor, and intended to replace human workers so that humans could relax and enjoy life and perfect themselves. And here we are in our late stage capitalist dystopia, in a world where
Mhm.
so much has been automated. Manufacturing jobs are, you know, a tiny fraction of what they were, you know. So many jobs have been automated out of existence, and the result is that human beings are not getting to relax and better themselves and enjoy life. They're expected to work like robots.
Mm-hmm.
I
right.
think what was pretty surprising too is, you know, like obviously this play is touching a lot on capitalism and criticizing it, but it's very specific too about like dividend and investment driven capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
This is before like Black Tuesday. This is before like this is decades before we get into like Reaganomics in the 80s and everything, and like where we are now, and it's so prescient like of where we are
Yeah.
now, where you have companies like Tesla that are like are very clearly not about the product and entirely about the stock, where we're far beyond the pale from what this play has talked about.
Right.
I think it also holds up a warning about the dangers of unfettered growth,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
very
And
much something we see driving, you know,
yeah,
modern late stage capitalist economics. It's unsustainable.
yeah, and this is 1920, correct?
Yeah, this play
Yeah.
is more than 100
Yeah,
years old, and it's
so this
Mhm.
is, I mean, this is right as, you know, we're getting into the biggest stock crash historically. You know, this is, you know, just a few years before that. In the same way
Yeah.
that this is sort of like easing into the age of fascism, this is also easing into the age of, you know, uh, the big takeover investment banking.
Right, like pointing out the worst consequences of what happens when we let like money rule all.
Right.
And that, I think, leads into one of the two quotes that I wanted to bring to the group here, which is the, you know, within the next 10 years, Rossum's universal robots will produce so much wheat, so much cloth, so much everything that things will no longer have any value. Everyone will be able to take as much as he needs. There'll be no more poverty. You know, I'm working, I think, from a slightly different translation here, but, you know, people will be out of work, but then by then there'll be no work left to be done. Everything will be done by the robots. People will only get to have to do only what they enjoy. They'll live only to perfect themselves. And, you know, here we are 100 years later in this age of, you know, product-based plenty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it ain't
The
happening.
thing that gets me is that, like, it's not a bad dream. Like, I believe that Damin's motivations are good. And when he says, like, I want to eliminate poverty,
Right.
I
I also
believe
want
that.
to do
Like,
that.
Yeah.
like he's not wrong. It's just, it turns out that the things that you made to do the labor are sentient. So, like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and
that's
also,
the issue.
you know, now that it's happening, like Shakira said, we're not doing that. We're expecting humans to work more, and we're expecting humans to work
Exactly.
as efficiently as these things that aren't human. And so Damin's dream might be great, but humans aren't.
I
And
also-
We've got this
they-
situation where
yeah.
where there's that surplus, you know, people are destroying it rather than giving it to people who need
Yeah.
it.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
I also love
Because,
this idea.
well, you know, we can't give it away for free.
Yeah.
You know, we'll pour the milk down the drain rather than give it to the hungry. We will
Right.
destroy the excess shoes, you know, rather than put them out in a dumpster where people might take them and actually wear them. You know, it's
Right.
just
Another one of my favorite lines is where Alquist talks about the virtue of labor and
dignity in
toil.
labor. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, that is not everything comes back to Marxism, I feel. The robots are alienated from the product of their labor, and that's the reason for their revolt. They're being forced to do all this work and they don't get any of the benefit, and they are smart, so they realize that. But Alquist is not. He is directly connected to his labor and enjoys the labor that he does, and that is what is fulfilling. And the reason, at least this is an analysis that I read. I don't know that this comes through necessarily in the play, but I like this interpretation, that the reason that people have stopped producing, that humanity has that people have stopped having children, is because when they are robbed of the ability to do meaningful labor, they lose the joy of life. And I think that there's this aspect of, well, yeah, it would be nice if we didn't have to do certain kinds of labor, but meaningful labor is still important, and we desire meaningful labor.
Alquist really makes this point for, like, we talk about this unskilled labor idea, like, there's no such thing as unskilled labor, you
Absolutely.
know, and that's what, like, all labor is valuable and meaningful. Like, even the grungy stuff that people don't want to do, like, it's valuable and, like, necessary for our society, and, like, putting value on it and putting value on the people that do it is like how we solve the problem of it being bad, is like, well, make it as easy as possible, but
No
then
unskilled
also, like,
jobs, only undervalued
understand
skills.
that it's like a hard job that needs skills.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass it over to Haz for the next segment here.
Oh, I had one more quote I really wanted to,
Oh yeah, go for it.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's a couple, it's the, I'm going to do them in reverse order. There's the exchange between Helena and Dr. Gall of, will they be happier when they feel pain? Oh, on the contrary, but they will be more perfect from a technical point of view.
Yeah.
And, shortly before that, we've seen the, do you think the soul first shows itself by a gnashing of teeth?
Right.
By that, which, and then there was a weeping and a gnashing of teeth in that very biblical sense, that's grief, that's pain right there. And so
that is actually the gnashing of teeth is a direct reference from the Bible.
Yes. So, Fabry first patronizing Helena with that, do you think that's how the soul first shows itself? And then, her exchange with Gall there, particularly taken in the context of what finally humanizes the robots to Alquist at the very end, is seeing Primus and robotic Helena in profound distress at the idea of losing one another.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And saying, wait, okay, this is the stirrings of a soul in these life forms.
Yeah, the idea that, like, what makes us human is pain.
Well, we're talking about the idea that there is, dignity in work, dignity in toil. I mean, Alquist has this very puritanical, well, we need work, we need weariness, we need suffering almost.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we need to go that far, but the idea that no one can be perfectly happy all the time, because at that point happiness becomes ultimately meaningless, and no one can live in a emotionless, value neutral state all the time.
So do you think this play holds up? Should people do this play? Is there anything you would change about this play majorly? And I want someone else to start because I have some controversial thoughts on this, maybe.
Yum.
I mean, obviously there are those certain lines that are, I think that if anyone produces play, the cuts that y'all made should be cut.
Yeah.
There's also things that I would cut just from, like, a literary perspective. There's a lot of very telly scenes that I'm just like, this doesn't read very well. Like when Helena
the
is like,
exposition fairy is here.
yeah, exactly. That I'm like, I don't even know that it needs that, because there's some really juicy stuff, and I feel like the part where Helena is like, but surely you remember when they gave the robots weapons and then the people and they do it. Surely you remember this that happened 10 years ago. And I'm like,
I'm just gonna read a bunch of news headlines right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's bring in a newspaper and read it.
It is a very very long play, and
Yeah.
if some of those kind of things were reevaluated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only an hour and a half.
Is it really?
Well, it can always be shorter. It can always be more efficient.
One thing that I think that, like, high school theater departments should be mindful of doing this play, and this is going to be true of, like, a lot of our plays, is, like, their parts for women really suck. So, like, if you do it, like, please, like, cast your talented female and non-binary actors, like, in the roles that are written for men, because, like...
Oh, I would love to chime in on that.
Yeah, Blake, let's talk.
Yeah, no, Helena is a very... I'm gonna say I was genuinely surprised how much she was given in terms of, like, character and actual stuff you can kind of, like, chew on and enjoy for her character, because while a good chunk of it just comes from, oh, you silly woman, there is a good bit that they're able to pull specifically from, like, her being a nepotism baby, just being, like, the daughter of the president, and how much that really informs a lot of what would otherwise just be like, oh, she's stupid and she doesn't really get things, and that's because she's a woman. But in this case, you at the very least, with a charitable reading, can view it more as she specifically doesn't know this stuff because she is not, she's trying to champion the working people, but she doesn't really know anything of what that actually is like and what that existence actually looks like. And so she is a lot more surface level, and particularly her, like, revulsion and disgust of the robots who she's trying to help, I think is really indicative. Once again, could be very surface level, but because of kind of her status and where she comes from, is a bit more fleshed out. But that said, she also, I would say, at least 30% of her lines are just, oh, go on, keep talking, big strong man. Give me more story.
Yeah.
But also, like, a lot of where the conflict comes from is that she's right, and the men dismiss her. Like, I think the first example is her being like, that's the soul, and everyone's like, oh, silly woman. But by the end, we're like, no, she was on the money. But also, she burns the manuscript, not because, oh, silly woman, but because they left her out, because they were patronizing her. So they never asked, like, I kind of love in that it makes me so angry when they're doing the vote at the end. And she's like, why didn't you ask me? And he says, oh, don't worry yourself with this. It's like,
is that where he calls her child?
He calls her a child.
Yeah, he calls her child.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's 31 by that
yeah,
point.
exactly.
Just,
and
goodness gracious.
I'm very used to plays that just treat women, that just patronize women in general, but it feels here like an intentional choice that the patronizing attitude is actually what gets them into this in the first place, because she is smart, though it is disconnected from the common man, but she is smart, and the fact that they ignore her and they don't keep her in the loop is what gets them into this in the first place.
Right. Helena has emotional intelligence.
And yeah, I was very, very impressed, and I think partly it was because of the casting. I was able to appreciate it, and I think the casting is so important in this show. I think if anybody is going to do this show, you need to know who you're casting and why you're casting them, because having Helena being played by somebody who's not cis, like, and having Hollmeyer, like, I loved playing, he's read as like a 40-year-old man with a bald head or something, and I was like, how am I gonna play this character? But I came in and I was like, oh, I can play him as a character. But I loved Alex and Blake's dynamic, because you both understand, like, the gender roles that they are playing, and you both know how to play with them so that it's a commentary rather than, oh, they're just brushing her off in the actual play. It felt like the play was commentary on this, and I think a lot of that is because of the casting. I think a lot of it is because you as actors understand that concept. And I think it could very easily be botched up by people who don't understand how smart Helena is and how right she is. A lot of the time. And also how privileged she is. There's a point where she's like, oh, close down the factory, we'll just run away together and start a completely new life. That's a very, wow, imagine dropping everything and just running away. Like, you can do that, but she can. And that's a lot of her mentality too, is like, I can do this impulsive thing because I don't have any consequences for that. But you have to be an actor and a director who understands that and who can, portray that to the audience. I think that's really important.
So do we think that should we do this play? Let's get a vote. Hands up if you think like a high school theater department should do this play. Interesting. We've got like 2 hands right now. Hands up if you feel like a professional theater company should do this play. Okay, 3 hands. So we don't, like, the group generally doesn't think like we should be doing this play, which I think is interesting, and like I think I'm generally inclined in that direction of maybe like it just doesn't hold up that well. Do we think it's one that we should try and adapt? Like, what does a modern adaptation of R.U.R. look like? Like, can we do it? Should we do it? Can we clueless it?
In a way, how hasn't this play been adapted? Like,
Fair.
a million times over. Like, it's in
Yeah.
every blockbuster Hollywood sci-fi movie we see. Like, this is literally like they've got these same plots in Marvel movies at this point. Like, it's such a common story. I think that was like the most disappointing thing about this, and I totally get it because it's old, but it's like, oh yeah, I've heard this story a million times before. Like, nothing about this was that
Right,
surprising.
it's like the exact plot of Age of Ultron, right? Which like
Yeah.
Capek did it
Basically.
first.
Oh, I mean,
but-
it's the exact plot of every single AI movie. I'm thinking Mitchell's
like-
vs. the Machines,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The
friggin'
Wallace and
any-
Gromit Close Shave has
Yeah.
some of this.
Of course, classic.
robots are gonna take over as the theme of
We're
like
used
all
to it.
robot sci-fi
It's
movies.
just a part of like human mythology at this point. I thought it was really interesting,
Mhm.
Alex. That I didn't know the connection to like the story of the golems, and like I didn't realize how far the story really goes back. I mean, that was
Yeah.
surprising to
This
me.
idea that like we create something to do labor for us and then we don't acknowledge it as a sentient creature and it fights back is like that is a fear that, like you said, that's central to human mythology, that is so just like central to us as beings.
And it's so interesting that it's so central to human mythology, but like so many people don't understand it. Because you would think that, since we're so scared of robots uprising and taking us over, if we don't treat them as valuable workers, we would treat the people who are actually working and actually existing
Actually
as
human.
valuable workers. But humans just aren't as threatening to us for some reason. But something beyond human and stronger than us that can rise up against us and usurp power is terrifying, because we don't think of humans as that strong or that powerful. Like, certainly the poor cannot possibly be as powerful as a group of robots,
It's interesting to me because like this is not a play I'm in love with, mostly because I do think that it's a very ideas heavy play, and it's very light on character, and I am much more interested in character pieces than I am ideas plays. It's not like Clybourne Park where I'm like, why would anybody like this? I understand the appeal, I just don't happen to share it. But that normally for me would mean I would want to adapt it into something that was a little different and more interesting. But I don't think this play, I think it needs to stay the way it is, even with warts and all, I guess. I think I think any adaptation would be a little strange to me. And there's also the, I don't know, novelty of robots, and it's written in, the 20s.
I think, to talk about adaptation, I think it can be adapted in the modern day, but it's a hard pivot. It is an absurd workplace comedy. It is because the things that make this play different, and there's not many, like y'all said, this is very well trodden ground. The things that this play focuses on is like the othering, the removal, the separation of what is happening on stage, what's happening with the characters, and like a literal robot uprising. That it's all being talked about in this like distant, far away discussion, and that it's like not quite affecting the people on stage. And so literally just like a bunch of cubicle jockeys these characters
That's a good
experiencing
argument.
those same issues of being like, oh, money solves all the problems. Oh, no one's CCing me on the emails. Oh, no, and all of that stuff. But make it a comedy because it's not earnestly,
The Office Robots
because
Edition.
it's such well-trodden ground, it's really not earnestly terrifying if we just play it straight. And so make it an absurdist comedy, and then you can play in that space where the robot uprising is happening all around you, but the people in their cubicles are just arguing over the facts of like, okay,
Can I
well,
steal
like,
that?
Sold me. Wow.
I'm a writer. It's what I
Like,
do.
genuinely, I was sitting here like, you can adapt this play, but that's how you adapt this play. Like, that's how you do it.
Yeah, I retract my former statements because that
That's
may have turned
Yeah.
me.
So maybe like we value this play in its place in history, and we value some of its quirks, and if we're gonna take it, we're gonna adapt it, like do something fun and cool with it, like Blake's awesome idea.
I think it, there are a lot of ideas to pick apart in it, but there's also a lot that just doesn't hold up by contemporary narrative standards. There are
Right.
these plot points that just don't make sense at best, and
The
are just
marriage?
inane. I mean,
Oh
the
my
marriage,
gosh,
like,
oh my
oh
gosh,
yes,
how-
hundreds of women
Don't
have
get me
come to the
started.
island before, but all of us have fallen in love with you, which is probably
Not
meant
explained
to be,
and is the funniest and most
the
terrible
robots, there's
part
no
of the
sign
whole
of
play.
affection between them, but all 5 of these men have suddenly fallen in love with you in the span of approximately 3 minutes.
I'm kind of
I
into
also
that
hate
part.
Or the end,
I hate with a
yes,
burning
there's these robots
passion.
who have feeling for one another, but they can go into the world as the contemporary Adam and Eve, but we haven't solved the problem of reproduction here. Nothing's actually changed.
Yeah, they're still
Right.
STEM.
Yeah, but also, again, the idea of adapting it. There is a version out there on YouTube where most of the men were recast as female, actors. Hellemire, Goal, Fabry, I think even Alquist. And it completely guts the dynamic between them and Helena. Helena's not being heard, being completely, spoken over and again. It's interesting. I've adapted a few works, and we know there's no such thing as colorblind casting. We know there's no such thing as genderblind casting. Considering the ramifications of switching up the gender of characters, both in terms of the archetypes they embody and in terms of the ways that they relate to one another. It can be done, but it has to be done with a great deal of care. And I feel like if you're going to expend that much energy and thought on things, there are things better served by that.
That's fair.
For all that this, as I said, is an absolutely interesting work worth studying. Personally, I don't think it's worth producing. It would involve that complete rewrite that Blake has mentioned.
Thank you all for coming to our talk episode. Thank you for listening to our talk episode. I'm going to call you out by name, and if you have something you would like to promote, whether it's your Twitter or Instagram or a project you're working on or a project you're thinking about, or you just want to say who your favorite robot is in the world, you can do that. I'm going to start with Alex. What do you have to say?
Hi, I'm Alex. My favorite robot in the world is Marvin from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I work at a production company called Strong Branch Productions, and we do a lot of cool stuff, including a sci-fi comedy called The Stench of Adventure. And if you like fun robots and different robots than this, you can check that out. That's a really good time. Shakira is in it, actually, in season 2. And I also do game design, and you can find those games at alexyquest.itch.io. And I make some silly little jokes on Twitter, and those are at alexyquest. Another thing I do is write short stories, and one of the short stories that I wrote was just published yesterday in Radon Journal. So check it out. This is Not a Place of Honor, Radon Journal.
That's
Very
awesome.
excited.
It's very good.
All right.
As someone who's read it, it's very, very good. I
Thank
recommend
you.
it.
Shakira, do you have anything you want to shout out?
Oh goodness.
You don't have to.
My name's Shakira Searle. You can hear me in various things around the internet, including Among the Stars and Bones, the Feminist Fairy Tales podcast. I appear in The Serpent Queen, the final story in season 1, in Strong Branch Productions' Stench of Adventure, as has been mentioned. And I'm utterly drawing a mental blank, so
That's
if
okay.
I've forgotten to mention you, I apologize, people, but I am going to say my favorite robot, Murderbot. Murderbot all the way.
Ooh,
Fair
about
enough.
to start that. That's next on my list.
Fair enough.
That is
All right,
Martha
Blake, what do
Wells'
you have?
series starting with All Systems Red.
Absolutely nothing, and I will but not be naming a favorite robot because I have an Alexa in my room and she is listening.
Excellent.
She's coming for you.
James, what do you got?
I am J.R. Steele in most places, especially in podcasts. I do Station Arcadia. I'm one of the executive team, and I also work on the audio for that. I also write for it, so you should definitely check that out. Season 2 is coming out soon. Hopefully, it's in production, and it's almost it's getting there. Neighborly has just released its last episode of season 2. I want to say yes, we're on season 2. Tomorrow they're releasing their last episode of season 2. So Neighborly, it's so good.
It's a good
Maddie
freaking
O.K.
show.
Smith. Oh, it's a freaking good show.
It's a really good show.
I'm so happy to be a part of it, and I love writing for it. It's really fun. Definitely worth checking out. And then I'm also writing for 2 Listless Productions. I am writing for season 2 of Tranthologies, which is exciting.
Nice.
And then I'm also writing for an upcoming podcast called Whitman and Sons Cassette Store.
Wonderful.
So very excited about that. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at pen_of_steele. And my website's on my Twitter and all my links and stuff. So I'm also an artist, so, check out my art. I'm cool.
Drew, what do you got?
Not a whole lot. My name's Drew Vollmer. You can find me anywhere if you really want to stalk me like that.
Perfect.
My favorite robot, I will say, is Jimmy Carter from the Disney World Hall of Presidents.
That's incredible. I love
thought you
that
meant
for
real
you.
life Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter.
That he was
On the ranking of presidents who might be robots, top third.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think Reagan is first. I think we can all
Yeah.
agree on that.
Yeah. Duh. Dom.
Yeah, I'm Dom Antonetti. I'm on Instagram. It's _Dom_Anto_. The 4K comedy show is my big project. Follow that, and if you're in LA, come to a show, and I perform stand-up comedy around LA.
Perfect. Laura, you go and then I'll close us out.
Perfect. That I don't have anything to promote except for us. We're the Public Domain Plays podcast. You might have figured that out by now. You can find us on Twitter at PDPlaysPod. Other places we're just Public Domain Plays. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've had a good episode.
You can send us an email too if you want to say anything to us, which is
publicdomainplays@gmail.com. Please reach out via email. I check the email so much and there's never anything in it, so I would love to get.
You could also leave us a review and all that.
Do you want me to send you an email, Laura?
That would be lovely.
Justifies it.
JR,
I do.
you had
I forgot to say my favorite robot.
Go for it.
Say it.
And I have a favorite robot. So my favorite robot is the one I play in Station Arcadia called Eris, because Eris is very cute. And I love Eris.
I forgot my robot
It's my
too.
favorite robot.
I also forgot to say that I'm going to be in season 2 of Station Arcadia.
You are, and we're
Yeah.
so excited. I'm so good.
My name is Has Katie again, and you can find me at the Has Katie on Twitter and Archive of Our Own. I don't know. I always like to shout that out just because I can.
I'll
My
follow
other
you.
podcasting
Go
credit is I guested on an episode of Fat Girl Book Club. That podcast is taking a long hiatus, but now is a great time to catch up on it. That's great. I'm not sure who my favorite robot is. I've got some in contention, including, I don't know if Data from Star Trek counts, but Data's amazing. And he's not really a robot. He's more of an android, but what is the difference? And then there's also Wally, who is as into Hello Dolly as I am. And that's
Wally!
appreciated, even if the movie he's in is extremely fatphobic. So thank you all for coming. I don't know. That's a weird way to say it. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to go with it. All right. Thanks. And we'll see you in October for Macbeth.
Woo!
Yeah.
All right.